Hi everyone, I'm Karim, Chikh, Head of Legal and Compliance Analytics at Kindred. And together with Daria, our RG Relationship Manager, we will present about harmful revenue and Kindred's journey to zero. So first of all, the journey towards zero. It's Kindred's ambition to reach 0% of revenue coming from harmful gambling by 2023. So we can find a lot more information on the Kindred website, but to simplify, basically what we want is no revenue from harmful gambling. And the key question for us that I will cover now is harmful gambling. So basically what it is and how we can monitor that. If we look at the definition of harmful gambling, we see that it's when your gambling starts to cause problems for you or others, and it's simply no longer fun, but the choice to cut back is proving difficult. So it makes sense, but from a data perspective, monitoring this is quite challenging. So how do we do at Kindred? We have three options. First one is self-exclusion, which is a proxy measure used in research widely. You have addiction closure, so it's self-confessed addiction from the player. And we have PS-EDS, which is our internal monitoring of markers of harm, which then assign a risk, an RG risk, to all our active players. So let's go through these more in detail. So self-exclusion is an RG tool. It's basically something, an option on site where players can use to exclude themselves for at least 6 months. Now, it's a proxy measure widely used in research. So very often you will find papers being published using self-exclusion as a proxy measure. But unfortunately, it has limitations, so it's not perfect. One key limitation is, first of all, that in the same area of research, it is being challenged. And I can refer you to, for example, paper recently published by Maris Catania and Professor Griffiths, where they challenged the concept of using self-exclusion for proxy measure. Also, we miss all national exclusion lists because although they are self-exclusions, they are done on particular websites, not on our platform. So we cannot track that. And also we know that some players use it as an account closure feature. So for example, they get annoyed by communication and they want to close their account and making sure that they don't get any more emails or anything like that. So one choice for them is self-exclusion sometimes. So it's good but limited. Now there is another option, which is the addiction closure. So what that is when the player discloses addiction or makes worrying comments, then the operator would close the account for addiction reason, risk of addiction. So the good thing is that it only includes problematic players, contrary to self-exclusion, which can also include players closing their account due to annoyance, for example. However, this population is very small. It's just a fraction of our targeted population, because obviously it would be only the addicts who went through phone calls and then they actually did disclose addiction or did make worrying comments. So the last option we have, and not the least, is our internal monitoring markers of harm. So this is what we call internally PS-EDS, so our player safety early detection system. The good thing is that it's a behavior-based monitoring system based on science and research. I'm not gonna go through much details here, as was already communicated a lot around how it works, but basically it's based on psychology and DSM-5, and we monitor that through over 20 different data points to come down to one specific score that with a scale of RG risk. Now, the limitation of it is that this is not 100% accurate, obviously. So, having said all that, our final solution to define harmful gambling is basically to combine all three. So we consider all self-excluded players, all closure for addiction, and all players flagged as high risk from our internal process. And this allows us in the end to produce that kind of statistics around our population. So this can be found publicly in the Kindred group website. What it shows is there's a split of all the active in proportion between social gambling, low risk of addiction, medium risk, and high risk. And the high risk population is based on PS-EDS, self-exclusion, and addiction closure, as I explained earlier, while the rest is strictly based on PS-EDS detection. Now, we can also use this harmful population in our analysis, which makes it even more interesting from our perspective. For example, if we look here, this is our proportion of active players who are marked as harmful players monthly since the month of January 2020. And looking at the variation of this population provides a lot of insights. And for example, you can see a significant spike in second quarter of 2020, which, if you probably remember, correspond to the start of the pandemic and the lockdowns around Europe. So, for example, if we get COVID data, for example, I use data from the Oxford COVID-19 Government Response Tracker. That data is available on GitHub. There is the link here. And we come back to our population. Then there is in that data a weighted lockdown index. And if we weight it based on the proportion active we have on each market, then this is what we get. And this is actually very interesting because we can see that in April, so we remember all that there was serious lockdowns in a lot of countries, and this corresponds exactly with that first spike in April in proportion of harmful actives on Kindred. And we do remember internally that we had a wave of alerts and things like that. And it challenged us in our internal processes. Now, what is also interesting is to look at the difference with 2021, because we had a similar or even worse spike in lockdowns, also in number of deaths and that kind of things. But we cannot see that spike in proportion of harmful actives, which highlights, we know it internally, that there has been, because there is a continuous improvement of our processes, of our, like everything we do RG related. And although in the end we were higher than in January 2020, if we consider the spike in this external event that we cannot control really, we maintain control of the harmful players on our platform. And we can see that now that it's calming down, our proportion of harmful actives are actually coming down as well. So this is just one example, but in the end, to conclude, we can see that measuring our harmful activity is not only a good indicator when we do it that way, but also provide a new perspective on our players. It also allows us to monitor our RG procedures efficiency, just using one KPI. It helps us identify harmful player journeys, but also can be a very good response variable for supervised machine learning. And in conclusion, we can also say that if we get that proportion revenue coming from that population down to zero, it implies that we would be a safer gambling operator. Now, how do we proceed with harmful gamblers? I will let Daria Magdoiu, our RG relationship manager, cover that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karim. Hi, I'm Daria Magdoiu. I'm part of the responsible gaming team at Kindred, and I'm going to present to you what type of procedures and interventions we have in place for the high-risk customers that Karim was referring to. So when our customers self-exclude with any of our brands, they cannot access their account anymore. And not just that, but the self-exclusion cannot be revoked until the selected time frame by the customer will pass. We also exclude automatically all the customers from any type of bonus information and promotional information because we don't want to trigger the customer in any way during this period. And the customers receive a follow-up email, an automated email with practical information with their self-exclusion, but also links to online and offline treatment centers just in case the customer will need help with managing their gambling. When it comes to confirmed addiction cases, as Karim mentioned, we have a very low percentage of customers that actually reach that stage of their gambling, but unfortunately it still happens. So what we do, we immediately close and permanently all the accounts on all our Kindred bands, and this means that the customer cannot play with us anymore and cannot register ever again an account with us. And if we have the opportunity to have the customer on a live contact, such as chat or through a call, we always take the time to listen to the customer, and we always take the time to discuss the unfortunate situation with the customer. And we always advise all our players to make sure to seek out professional help. And then we also follow up with an email that we sent with the customer to the customer, which contains a lot of useful information and useful links to online treatment centers, to local treatment centers, to support groups that they can reach out to. And another thing that we do is that we offer for free to all our customers a Gamban license. And Gamban is a third-party software that once a customer installs on their devices, it blocks access to all online gambling operators, both the ones that are licensed, but even the offshore ones. And this was proven very efficient with the customers that want to stop gambling, but for example, they would need help too. So it's just another layer of protection and help that we offer to our customers for free. Now, the main objective of PS-EDS is to make sure that it detects early stages of potential problematic behavior, and this will allow us to intervene at an early stage and to make sure that the customers don't escalate in risk level. But sometimes we do have customers that are detected on high risk levels. And for these customers, we do take control of the accounts by blocking the deposits. And this means that the customer can no longer add money to their gambling account. Then we immediately inform the customers about the fact that they were detected on a high risk level, about the fact that we are worried, and therefore we applied some restrictions to their account. And also we advise the customer that we will get in touch with them soon. In the meantime, one of our highly trained responsible gaming analysts is manually checking all the customers' activities. So from account history, financial history, all the behavioral red flags, they collate all this information in a customer risk profile. And we always try to establish human interaction with the customers, especially on the high risk levels. And during these calls, we discuss our worries with our customers, and we always make sure that we point out all the behavioral red flags that we notice, and we always try to discuss them, and obviously we then decide on the best way forward. And this can mean either setting up control tools that will help the customer self-regulate, or sometimes it can even mean taking a break from gambling, depending on the customer. And for you to have a better understanding of the intervention flow that we have in place for high-risk PS-EDS detected customers, we also prepared a case study for you. She is one of our female Hungarian customers. She's 31 years old and been active with us since the end of 2020. Now, she was first detected on high risk in January this year. And what is very important to note is that despite that the financial losses of the customer in the moment of detection were on the fairly low side, the customer was still detected because PS-EDS focuses on behavioral red flags and not just on financial activity. And her account was a constellation of behavioral red flags. So we noticed, for example, that the customer was frequently visiting the bonus page, so constantly checking if she has any free money or any bonuses added to her account. We also noticed the fact that she had, during the month of detection, so in January, she reversed a withdrawal, and she unfortunately ended up losing half of the withdrawal amount. She was mainly playing sportsbook, but we noticed the fact that she was placing her bets on different type of sports. And also, as you can see from the first graph, in the month of detection, the time that she was spending online spiked a lot. And not just that, but she also started playing at unsocial hours. So this means very late at night or very early in the morning. She was also logging in every single day to her account. And we noticed the fact that she was making quite a few changes to her control tools that she set up in her account, and especially to the reality check tool. And this can be an early sign of loss of control. Now, in terms of intervention, as I mentioned before, given the fact that the risk of the customer is so high, we immediately blocked the deposits of the customer, and we informed her about the fact that she was detected on a high risk. We informed her that we are worried for her, and therefore we temporarily restricted her account, and we advised the customer that we are going to get in touch with her soon. And in the meantime, one of our responsible gaming analysts checked the account, checked the behavioral red flags, the customer's financial activity, and we decided that the best way forward is to give the customer a call. And for this specific interaction, we chose a Hungarian-speaking female specialist, just to make sure that we make the customer feel comfortable, and to make sure that we get the best outcome out of the interaction. And during the call, we discussed the worries that we had with the customers. We discussed all the behavioral red flags, and we decided together with the customer to also set up a deposit limit in her account. And the outcome was pretty amazing to see, because as you can see from the first graph, the customer managed to very nicely self-regulate, and she was never detected again after the intervention on PS-EDS, so not even on lower risk levels. And from the bottom graph, you can see that from January, when was the moment of detection, her time spent online started decreasing considerably. And she is still an active player with us. The deposit limit that we set together is still in place. And not just that, but the customer also added a loss limit to her account. And she also, out of her own will, took a break from sportsbook during the month of August, when she proactively blocked the product for 1 month. And this is one example of how we try to help our customers to self-regulate and to return to a healthier gambling behavior, and therefore we can exclude them from the harmful gambling revenue equation. And we are very committed to reducing this harmful gambling revenue, and that's why we are constantly looking into ways of improving our detection system, of improving our intervention, the way that we speak to the customers, the way that we interact with them, our tone of voice, our communication channels. So we make sure that we always improve our responsible gaming procedure in general, just to make sure that we make gambling a more trustworthy and a more sustainable form of entertainment. I hope you enjoyed our presentation, and thank you so much for your time.